In today's lesson, we're going to learn how to mix languages. So in particular, we're going to learn how to bring SwiftUI into an existing UIKit-based project which has a storyboard already in it. In our past lessons, we already talked about doing the reverse, where we had a SwiftUI project. We want to add a few UIKit-based objects such as the WebKit view and PencilKit. So we learned how to do that. You can refer to a past video if you want to do the reverse. What we're going to do today is focus on something that I think would be more relevant because, majority of the projects out there are already done in UIKit. I can't see developers abandoning existing projects and just rewriting everything from scratch unless they really needed to, and they were planning on doing a rebuild of their app, which is actually very time consuming. So I can see a lot of projects continuing on in SwiftUI or continue on UIKit depending on how they feel about it. So the reason I created this simple little application today was just to show you that if you are on a project where you already have an existing project that has a UIKit and has storyboards, and you're told you want to add some new screens and you want to do it in SwiftUI, or you're told to do it in SwiftUI, you can do so with ease. And it's actually easier to add SwiftUI stuff to an existing UIKit project than it is to do the reverse. The reverse isn't too bad, but you still have, there's actually less work involved in doing so. So let's look at the final product here. What I did was I created a simple homepage with two buttons, a label and two buttons. So this first button here says go to a new UIKit View Controller. So just illustrating, this is a UIKit based page. There's nothing special here, nothing new. If you're a UIKit developer already, you already know storyboards and view controllers and all that, then this is no big deal. It's really quick to put together. The second page is go to a new SwiftUI ContentView. And so if I click on this is actually a SwiftUI page right here on top of a view controller. Right? So SwiftUI using a view controller, right? Hit back, return back to the home page. So this is what I want to illustrate to you today. So first thing we'll do is we're going to create a new project. So we have iOS single view application. And I'm going to call this M7 mixing languages. All right. And I'll leave everything else unchecked. Most important thing is we're going to use a storyboard this time around. So if you have SwiftUI already enabled, switch that back to storyboard and hit next and give it a home. All right. So we have here a basic storyboard based application. We already have main.storyboard auto-generated for us, and we have a viewcontroller.swift auto-generated for us. So now it's up to us to try and build this out. First, I'm going to start with main.storyboard. We're going to build out our UI first off. All right, so there's our home page right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by adding a label and a couple of buttons. So I hit the plus sign there. So if you're not accustomed to building stuff in UIKit, there was a lot of dragging and dropping where you dragged and dropped items directly onto a view and adjusted it as you needed to, as opposed to typing everything purely 100% in code. So I'll hit the plus sign there. You get this little tools palette that pops up. So I'm going to drag a label and stretch it out. And we'll say that this label is our title, which is Mixing UI Kit and SwiftUI Views. All right, that's our title. Center that text. Now I'm going to add a couple of buttons. All right, so this is our first button. Just do a Command C to copy, Command V to paste. All right, so the first button will just say go to new UIKit View Controller. The second button will say go to new SwiftUI ContentView. All right, so we have our two buttons. We'll start with doing everything purely UIKit and storyboard based, then we'll move into SwiftUI. So now in a storyboard, to add new screens, we simply drag over view controller. So I'm going to search for a view controller. And there's view controller right there. So I'm going to drag one. Zoom out a bit so you can see a bigger view of this. So this will be our view controller based page. I'll drag a second one since I'm at it. Throw that there. All right. Now to go from one page to another, we just create segues. The easiest way to create a segue from one page to another is to click on the button that you want to click on to navigate to that new page. Then hold down the control key on your keyboard, click and drag to the new page. Let go. We're going to choose present modally. Right, so it creates a little arrow there that you can see, which actually illustrates that there's going to be a transition there. Now I'm going to click on the second button, hold down the control key on my keyboard, click and drag to the other page, choose present modally as well. All right, so we have two screens that are subpages of our home page there. And what we're going to do is we'll start with this page here. And what we'll do is we're going to add a navigation bar to the top. Now in SwiftUI, you found it was very easy. It was automatically generated. So you didn't have to worry about that. But here we have to manually add these things in. So I'm going to add a navigation bar. So there is navigation bar. All right. And for this title, we'll say UIKit based view controller. All right, let's add one to the other page, navigation bar. This will be SwiftUI based view controller. All right. Now we need back buttons. We have to manually add those. They were automatically generated when in SwiftUI when we use the navigation view, but here we have to manually add them in. So we're looking for a bar button item. We'll change the text of that to back. Same here again. All right, so now we have two screens here. Two subscreens, that is, from our home page. Now, for those of you not familiar with view controllers and UIKit, when you drag a new screen onto your storyboard, you need to have a Swift file associated for each of these screens. So we need to generate a couple of new files here. So I'm going to right click on my folder here, M7 Mixing Languages. I'm going to say new file. iOS Cocoa Touch class is what we're saying. Hit next. Subclass of UI View Controller. I'm going to call this page 2 UIKit View Controller. All right, and give it a home. All right. So let's finish this page. It's going to be a very simple page. So we'll go back to main.storyboard. We're not even going to add any code. It's just going to be that simple. So we're going to go back to main.storyboard. Just add a simple label to this UIKit based view controller. All right, and the text for this new label will be, this is a UIKit page. All right. Now we have a back button, and we didn't have to do anything in SwiftUI to get the back button enabled and to navigate back to the previous screen. But we have to do something here in the UIKit world to get this back button up and running. So we need to learn how to unwind our segue. Like we talked about setting up our segues to go from one page to another. Now, if we want to go back to the previous page, we don't just create a segue back. We have to unwind the segue. So we need a special method. So this involves two steps. First, we need a special method that goes into the page that we're returning back to. So into this page. This page by default is tied to viewcontroller.swift. So it's this one. So I'm going to add this method here. And this method is an IB action. Right? So I'm going to say IB action, func. I'm going to call it unwind to home VC. Sender is, and this is important, UI storyboard segue. And the method can be completely empty, which it typically is. So we unless you want to actually have some code happen during your segueing back to your home page, you don't need to add anything. You have an empty method. It's just the fact that the method exists, that in the first place, that's what's important to Xcode and Interface Builder, so they can actually make the connection. Now that we have this method here, I'll just Command S to save and go back to main.storyboard and go to back to this page. First off, I need to, because I created a new view controller, page2 UIKit view controller.swift, I have to tie this together with this screen. To do that, I make sure that my yellow circle, which represents my view controller, is highlighted. By default, it's tied to UI view controller. And I want to change that to be page2 UIKit view controller. So I'm going to go to the fourth option here, which is the identity inspector. All right. And class, it says UI view controller. We're going to change this to page2 UIKit view controller and just hit tab to tab away. So now it's connected to that. So any code I write inside page2 UIKit view controller will be representative of what needs to be done on this page. So if you want anything to happen on this page, you put it inside that Swift file. The only thing I'm going to do here is connect the back button. So I want to set up the back button to go back to the previous page. So what we do is we click on the back button, hold down the control key on our keyboard, click and drag to this icon right here. This is our exit icon. And when we let go of it, you see our name here, Unwind to Home VC. All right. Now the back button works. And you can give it a run just to verify that you can go to that new page. So let's hit run quickly. All right, so there's go to new UIKit view controller. It's going to hit that. Here's our new, this is a UIKit page. Hit back. We're back on our home page. If you want to verify that we can go to the second page, go to new SwiftUI ContentView. Well, yeah, you can go to there. This is still a UIKit based view controller. But now, let's get this set up so that it actually displays a SwiftUI view instead of just a view controller. All right, so to do that, let's first create our new SwiftUI view. All right, so we're going to right click and we're going to say new file, iOS iOS SwiftUI view this time. All right. And so I'm going to hit next. And we're going to call it page 3 SwiftUI view. All right. And we'll hit create. All right. So we got our SwiftUI view. I'm not going to worry about the previews at all. All right. We have a simple hello world there. In fact, we could change this text to be something more relevant. So I'm going to say, this is page 3, a SwiftUI view. All right, let's add some padding. Let's say 25, just to stretch it out if you want. All right, so this is it. We're going to do a very basic SwiftUI view here, just to prove that we can do it. You can see here's the view, there's a body, there's some previews, importing SwiftUI. So this is our view. Now, if we want to get a SwiftUI view to appear, we have to do that inside the view controller. So for that, like I said earlier, we created a view controller file for that second page, that UIKit based second page. Well, we also need a view controller file for this screen that we're going to display here. It's so that we can get this SwiftUI view to load on it. So I'm going to add a new file. And this will be iOS Cocoa Touch class. And it'll be a subclass of UI View Controller. I'm just going to call it page 3 View Controller. And give it a home. All right. Now, inside of this, what we're going to do is we're going to have our our SwiftUI ContentView display inside a view, the UI view that we have in our view controller. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an IB outlet. So IB outlet, weak var the container extends UI view. All right. Now, inside viewDidLoad, which is like the quote-unquote constructor for the screen, if you want to consider it that way, but it'll auto-execute code upon loading this screen, this view controller. We want it to automatically load the SwiftUI view. So we're going to use an object called UIHostingController. So when you were doing the reverse, you were trying to bring in UIKit, like UIKit-based objects into a SwiftUI content view, you used a UI view representable. Now, when you go in the opposite direction, when you want to bring in SwiftUI into an existing UIKit Storyboard-based project, you're going to use UIHostingController. So what we're going to do is we're going to say let child view equal UIHostingController. And it's not auto-completing because UIHostingController exists inside the SwiftUI framework. So I'm just going to hit back a bit. We should be importing SwiftUI. So I'm going to say let child view equal UIHostingController. And root view will be the name of our SwiftUI content view, which is page 3 SwiftUI view, and instantiate it. All right. Now, what we do is we add this to the screen by saying add child for child view. All right. Now, we want to specify sizing to be complete. So we're going to say child view dot view dot frame is equal to the container dot bounds, which basically says stretch this new page 3 SwiftUI view to be the size of our container view that we defined above, and then we're going to bring into our storyboard. Now finally, let's get this to display by saying the container dot add subview for child view dot view. All right, so that's it for coding. Now let's move back to the storyboard and connect things up and get things up and running. So we'll switch back to main.storyboard. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a view. So I'm going to search for a UI view. And there it is. View. I'm going to drag this and stretch this to be the remaining size of the screen there below the navigation bar. All right. And now let's first subclass this view to be page 3 view controller so we can take advantage of the code that was generated there, that we wrote there. So I'm going to click on the yellow circle and you see my identity inspector. I'm going to change from UI view controller to page 3 view controller. All right, I hit tab to tab away. So now all the code that exists there is connectable. All right. So now let's switch over to my connections inspector because I have having my yellow circle highlighted. I can see that the container, the IB outlet I defined, is there. So I'm going to drag and connect that to what I just created. So the container, and I also have a back button I need to set up. So I'm going to click on the back button, hit the control key on my keyboard, click and drag to my exit icon, and choose Unwind to Home VC. And that's it. Let's give it a run. All right. So now let's say go to New SwiftUI ContentView. And there you are. This is page 3, a SwiftUI view. All right, and I hit back. I can go back to my home page. All right. So there you have it. This is how you can bring in an existing into an existing UIKit based project that has view controllers, SwiftUI ContentViews. So now you can mix together SwiftUI and UIKit. All right. And that's it for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends. Until the next video, have a good one. Take care. Bye for now.